Hello. Ooh, that was a wonderful intro. Okay. So as you all know by now, I didn't go to culinary school. I just loved cooking. The way it made me feel, the way it tasted, but most importantly, how new food experiences spark joy. My love and passion for food and cooking drove me to quit a PhD in neuroscience and throw myself into the restaurant industry. I started first serving and then eventually cooking at some of Jose Andres' restaurants, followed by a move to Spain to work at one of the best restaurants in the world at the time, El Bulli. Eventually opening my own restaurants in Asheville, North Carolina, Cúrate and La Bodega by Cúrate. My understanding that has grown over the years that human connection is really at the core of all joy has driven the way we run our businesses. Instead of growing by opening more Cúrates across the country, we've actively sought out ways that we can grow while remaining personally and physically connected with our businesses in Asheville. We've added Cúrate trips, guided food-focused tours to Spain and the Mediterranean, a wine club, our own authentic Spanish-style line of charcuterie that we produce and are beginning to retail, a TV show called From the Source, and a growing number of cookbooks. That joy of cooking, creating, replicating, and tasting new food experiences has never gone away. But I have begun to realize that it isn't really about one bite of delicious food. It's about the human connection created in that moment, a shared discovery that is really what is behind those moments of joy. You take the people away, and the moments fall flat. They lose their vibrancy. It has taken me a while to appreciate and understand just how important human connection is, not only in terms of appreciating new food experiences, but most importantly, in terms of working in the food world. When I first started over 15 years ago, I had no clue what I was doing. So I just worked. I kept my head down and did whatever I was told. Trying to connect with those around me didn't even cross my mind. El Bulli, this incredible restaurant tucked away at the northeastern edge of Spain, perched on a cliff overlooking the Mediterranean, was helmed by the chef who forever changed how restaurants cook and the world's view of fine dining experiences today. As many of you know, his name is Ferran Adrià. Needless to say, when I first started working in that kitchen, I was nervous. I could hardly speak any Spanish. That's me, young and nervous. All of the cooks were lined up, dressed in our uniformed blue aprons. Looks kind of gray there, but they were blue, trust me. And we were going around the room introducing ourselves. My heart was pounding. I felt like it might literally burst from my chest. The room felt hot and stuffy. It's a little bit like this experience right now, but I looked around and everyone seemed so confident, full of experience. They were chefs de cuisine of their own restaurants, culinary school students who had won these prestigious awards. And I was absolutely certain that each and every one of them could flip a perfect omelet blindfolded and speak Spanish. Who were these people? It came to my turn, and I repeated this phrase that I had learned by listening to a Rosetta Stone course every morning before work. Me llamo Katie. So slowly and painfully, and with such a thick American accent, everyone now knew instantly that I wasn't good enough to be there. That is how it started. Then, we were told to go outside and pick up all the rocks in the garden. Okay, this is the beach, and I am picking up rocks. The garden had a lot of rocks, so it kind of similarly, but maybe not quite that many. But we were told to go outside and pick up all the rocks in the garden, clean them, and then put them back. I remember sighing with relief, actually. Wait, there isn't going to be some culinary skills test? I'm not going to be told to temper chocolate on the marble countertop using just how it feels on the top of my upper lip to know it's tempered perfectly? We are going to the garden to do yard work? Phew. What I lacked in hard culinary skills and years of experience, I made up for in work ethic, focus, and determination. Show me how you want something done. Let me do it once on my own to make sure I got it right, and I am off and running. The garden was where I was able to show that off. I worked hard. I never stopped. I cleaned and organized those rocks diligently. I heard others complaining about why they had to do it. I mean, they had come to El Bulli to cook, not landscape, for Christ's sake. It was a test of the kind of skill that El Bulli valued greatly. Can you work diligently at any task and treat it with the utmost care and responsibility? It also, for me, was a way to calm my central nervous system. I knew that if I didn't talk, then I could complete the work faster and better than the person next to me. Not only would I be able to fit right in, but my silence and diligence would be the very thing that helped me stand out. I remember completing the task, marveling at the work that we had done, no one saying anything about it, and then we were told to go back inside and clean the kitchen. It was like that no matter what the task was, whether I was following a recipe, executing the most perfect spherical olives, that trademark dish that El Bulli created, which required perfectly shaping olive juice in a bath of alginate. It's basically like a seaweed-based gelatin, so that they were not round, but ovals, like a real olive, with no odd bits and pieces sticking out. It's a task that takes practice and repetition. If I had done the task well, no one said anything. In fact, I knew that if no one said anything at all, it not only meant I had completed the task well, but it meant, in fact, that I had knocked it out of the freaking park. The level of perfection was so tight and necessary that if any little thing were off about it, you were told immediately. So when no one said anything to you, you knew you had crushed it. There were just these subtle gestures. I remember making the black sesame garrapiñado, and what's funny is, to this day, I still don't know the name for that technique in English. It will forever be garrapiñado to me. But what I had to do was I had to crystallize sugar around the outside of each black sesame seed and then cook it until it caramelized, being sure to take it a little further than felt comfortable. When it just barely started to whisper the idea of smoke. And then, quick, flip it out of the pot, scrape it onto the countertop so it would stop cooking. We would then, with super fast hands, separate the candied black sesame seeds into rock-like shapes with an eye to ensure that no rock looked the same. Because when things look too uniform, they do not look like nature. I remember the pastry chef, Mateo Casañas, picking up a little bit, tasting it. And there was this slight nod, a glance, a little whiff of approval in the air, and I knew it was perfect. I was raised to learn that doing a good job meant not hearing anything. If someone was saying something to me, it was because I had made a mistake. And this felt entirely normal to me. It was what I was used to and grew accustomed to. It was what was modeled to me in every restaurant I worked. I loved my work because I did it to the best of my ability. And I knew that, I could feel it. Not because I received praise, but because I wasn't being reprimanded. I actually loved the feeling of separateness that culture created. It was the exact opposite of vulnerability. And to me, it felt so much easier. Now, here I am, the owner of 2 restaurants in Asheville, North Carolina, and I am struggling with figuring out how to motivate my teams and express myself through emotional connection and conversation. I know that saying nothing no longer works with my current team. They are from a different generation. They know that saying nothing actually impedes human connection. When we first reopened our restaurants in July of 2020 in the pandemic, there was so much fear. Our employees were afraid, our guests were afraid, the whole world really was terrified. We all got to witness firsthand that one of the first emotions to show up when people are afraid is anger. And that ironically, the only antidote to fear and anger is human connection. I knew that I would have to connect with people to make them feel heard, understood, to calm their fear, for our businesses to be able to operate and get through just one more day. And it was really the first time that it dawned on me just how difficult that task would be for me personally. Simultaneously, I started to dive deeper into asking questions like, what is at the core of life? The whys and the what-fors. Coming out of the pandemic, and also the fact that I just turned 40 this year, typical of what I like to call the midlife awakening, not crisis. It feels like a freight train hitting me. That the very thing that I need to feel most fulfilled in my life, and the very thing that my team needs to feel fulfilled in their careers and life, is also the very thing that is most difficult for me as a person: human connection. It's like walking into that room at El Bulli all over again on the first day. I imagine looking someone in the eye and telling them how incredibly wonderful they are, and I can feel the anxiety and panic rising within me. Why can't things just stay the same? Why can't we keep running restaurants and workplaces where if I humph at you, you know something didn't go right? And if I do this, you know you crushed it. Enough said. In fact, absolutely nothing said. Move on and let's get working on the next prep project, please. That feels so much more comfortable, subtle, nonverbal communication. Why is that not enough? The truth is, I know why it's not enough, because deep down, I know that human connection is the most important part of life. It's the thing. It's at the core of the joy I have felt when tasting my first percebe. Barnacles, which they look like they come from another planet, as you can see here, and are lightly steamed and chilled. To eat them, you have to peel them, and they are delicious dipped in alioli, that incredible emulsion of garlic and olive oil. Yes, the bite itself is perfection, but the true joy I experienced was because there was someone else next to me at that table sharing that experience with me. A person to laugh with about how ridiculous and alien-like those percebes look. And to chuckle when the juices squirted the neighbor's table when I took a bite. It's really about the human connection. And the best thing about the restaurant industry is that you have the opportunity to make a connection with people at every single turn. It's an industry that takes more staff than most to operate. It's also the industry that has slim margins, so space is tight, and most is given to the guests. So you are literally elbow to elbow with humans at each and every moment. The truth is that while it may have been a positive work experience for me to work in a restaurant with my head down and feel rewarded for that, those moments aren't the ones I'm going to be thinking about as I grow older and reflect on how I spent my life. It's the moments of true, direct human interaction that I will cherish, and how I showed up in those moments. Did I run and hide because the anxiety and fear was overwhelming? Because it is. Or did I stop living in my comfort zone and put myself out there? And did I model that type of behavior for my team? I can say without hesitation that I have work to do there. It's really hard to change something about yourself and how you show up in a situation when it is entirely contrary to how you were raised or the behavior that was modeled for me. This makes it completely unfamiliar and honestly downright scary. I'm fighting who I know myself to be, having to stretch and grow into a new me. I find it much easier to stand up here and talk to a room full of people about this than I would looking one of you directly in the eyes and telling you from the bottom of my heart what an incredibly wonderful person you are. I could do it better through an email, through a public social media post, anything where I don't have to feel that super deep overwhelming of emotional connectivity. When I accepted the James Beard Award last year, the first thing out of my mouth was about normally being a cold person. The award was for outstanding hospitality. A self-description of cold is not what you would expect the winner of the outstanding hospitality category to fess up. What I think I meant was that I never learned how to connect through words emotionally to people. When I think about why this is, I realize it's part of my wiring, but also part of my generation, my upbringing, and the way that I received affirmation for the work that I did in my life. I've started to deal with the recognition of my shortcomings by trying to hire people who are not like me, who more easily open up with their feelings, to whom giving out recognition and accolades is second nature, who can create moments like that. We created a position in our company, culture manager. One of our restaurant managers was so good at making our customers and colleagues feel seen that we created this position for her as part of our human resources team. It's been hugely helpful to add that core strength to our overall company management. I have also learned to handle this growth moment that I'm in by being open and honest about who I am and what I am working on. I recently dined at one of our restaurants, and the sous chef expediting that evening asked me how everything was, and I paused awkwardly at the question. Complete silence. He picked up on it and said, "Oh, that bad, huh?" And I was like, no. Actually, it was great. I am just super awkward, a bit of an introvert, so please don't take my silence or hesitation for anything more than that. The meal was truly delicious. And then he laughed. El Bulli and the other restaurants I have worked at were the places where I learned how to run my own restaurants. And while those experiences were wonderful, I think about what it would have been like if I had received more positive reinforcement or more human connection modeled for me back then. The ripple effects that would have had on my generation and future generations and the hospitality industry as a whole. If human connection is at the nexus of what creates joy in life, it is also the reason people dine out, and at the very core of feeling fulfilled in life. It means that we as an industry have the opportunity to create spaces for our guests and our employees that hold human connection as the primary goal. This is our industry's staying power. It's what makes us special and unique, but only if we are brave enough to open our hearts to it. Thank you.